Hey, it's Chronologically Gaming, the only channel that's perpetually retro because we're playing every video game in order of release. You've stumbled upon the backlog, where we're checking out all the video games that we missed the first time around on the live show. Let's see what's happening in the summer of 1976.
Headquarters has them on the screen. They're turning south onto Route 5. And you're after them. You drop the roadblock and go for a hookup. Now you move it forward, steady it, and lower it. You've got them. Now you bring them in. 10-4. The Vertibird Air Police comes with everything you see here from Mattel.
We were last checking out the games on the very first computer you could be playing in 1976 or ever on the Sol 20. Let's see what our video gaming takes us now. Our next release is back in the arcade. This is Cobra Gunship, released in the beginning of July 1976. So we've already seen this one. We're going to do a few things we haven't seen so far for Cobra Gunship. This marks the 186th game we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. This game is only available in the arcades, the 146th arcade game we've seen so far, and it's by Meadows. Cobra Gunship is a flight combat action game in which the player controls a gunship and must destroy targets. Targets include tanks, jeeps, half-tracks, and other gunships. The player can strafe and climb, and enemy sprites grow and scale when they get closer. The game can be played by 1 or 2 players in hot seat mode. The length of play is dependent upon how many times you missed. It's the very first game with that joystick, the yoke joystick. And this is an ad magazines may have had. You can see it has different features about the arcade cabinet. Interesting design too. And then this is the one that we saw in color. You can see the arcade cabinet has curves. Everyone loves that. Authentic controls, realistic targets. You can see they're saying down at the bottom. And the Meadows advertisement flyer, they kind of kicked it up a notch. This looks really, really nice. Very, very well done. Flip this over in the back, and you can see it has authentic controls because of that yoke joystick. It's only hot seat arcade multiplayer. You don't get to play at the same time. It's only the third flight combat video game that we've seen so far after Pursuit by Atari and Interceptor by Taito. This one has no microprocessor. So it's transistor to transistor logic, which means you have to have a simulator to play it. We cannot play this game, so we're going to try to get as many screenshots as we can. Look down on the bottom left. That screenshot I'm going to blow up, and then you can see there's even one in the middle that says crash with examples of what the other vehicles you're shooting at would have looked like. So this one, I can't even find video footage for. So what we see here, all this artwork that I've amassed from the internet, that's it. It's a very, very rare arcade cabinet. It's the 32nd game we've seen that has a time constraint. So no high score, no arcade game loop. It's just based on time. It also has an overlay included, and you can kind of see from this screenshot here, or the advertisement flyer. It's the 63rd video game we've seen that has an overlay, and the 36th that we've seen so far in the arcade. It is using a digital joystick. It's the 33rd game that we've seen that's controlled this way, but the yoke joystick is brand new. You can't even really tell in this advertisement flyer. You can really tell right there. Take a look at that. And we're going to see other arcade games do this. This is the very first one ever, to my knowledge, or the first one we've ever seen on Chronologically Gaming. It's also showing down on the bottom right the arcade cabinet flipped up, which is kind of interesting. It's the third time we've seen a video game that's you're controlling a crosshair or something on the screen that moves around after F-114 and Interceptor. It's also relative control because it's meant to be simulating like you're flying in a plane. It's the 24th game we've seen that is relative control. There we go. There's the arcade cabinet, but still, you don't have a really good shot of that joystick. Lots of cool instrument display panels making you feel like you're in a plane, but this really isn't a flight simulation game. These arcade games I would consider more like vehicular combat games, action games. While they look like you're flying in a plane, it really isn't trying to simulate that. It's the 11th game we've seen that has a first-person perspective up to this point, after games like Wild Gunman, Quack, Bullet Mark, and Outlaw. And it's the 17th video game that has a war theme so far. There's not a whole lot of games that are out there. It's the 12th video game involving flight or aviation, and it is the very first video game where you are getting to pilot or fly a helicopter. A gunship is essentially a helicopter. This is the first helicopter video game. And because we can't play it, it's the 172nd game that has no microprocessor. So we have to give this one a big fat 0 or no rating. We only get to rate the games that we can play ourselves. All right, after that game, what's our next release? We're still in the arcades, and it's another one we've seen before on Chronologically Gaming. This is Cops and Robbers, released in the beginning of July 1976. It's the 187th game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming. And here's the artwork. This is only in the arcades. It's the 147th arcade game we've seen so far, and it's by Atari. Atari's 30th game, the 29th that we've seen in the arcade, only because we've just seen Pong at home on the show. Also, don't forget about Key Games and their start as Syzygy Engineering. All those will work. Cops and Robbers, 1 to 4 players play the parts of police and criminals. The 2 sides are on each side of the street in their car, shooting each other. Each side can move up and down in their own lane, and a beer truck moves up and down in the center lane, which gets in the way of the shooters. This offers 4-player simultaneous multiplayer, and it tells you on the advertisement flyer. The Tommy gun sadly doesn't come with the arcade cabinet. I love it if it would, but you can see the barrels on the sides, and the control is another unique, very slightly different control. We're going to zoom in on the advertisement flyer. So after this, we flip this over in the back. It has a really nice screenshot and showing the artwork around the bezel. You have a foot pedal down at the bottom. You actually are driving using a pedal. And it has good guys and bad guys side. It's Cops and Robbers. It's one of the first tropes or video games trying to play like what you and your friends would be playing. Cops and Robbers. There you go. There's the arcade. The whole arcade cabinet. Now, it's a 4-player simultaneous game, so 4 people can be using the joystick, which only is a vertical joystick. It just moves up and down, and then the pedal down at the bottom. Very unique control scheme. Up to this point, we've seen it's the very first only 2-way vertical joystick on the show only. There's other video games that use dual vertical joysticks like the tank games we've seen, but it's the very first video game that has only a pedals and not anything else. We played 13 games at this point that have a steering wheel or maybe even a gear shifter, but never just a pedal and then just a joystick. So it's unique. I can see great artwork there too. Yeah, there it is. Very nice. And then there's the control. See, all you're doing is a joystick that moves up and down. It just has one vertical direction, to the top and to the bottom. And the multiplayer is really nice. 4 players is what we've seen already on the show. At this point, this is the 53rd 4-player video game across all systems. Steeplechase had 6 players at a time. Indy 800 had 8 players at a time. And then Nintendo's EVR Race had 10 players at a time, but I don't think EVR Race counts because that was just horse betting. You just push a button. This one does offer team play, though. It's the 36th video game where you can work together with a partner on a team. And it also has a single-player mode as well, and a competitive mode. So lots of gameplay modes with this one. There's a little example of what the control scheme's like, and the arcade marquee for Cops and Robbers. Very nice. The theme, using Tommy guns, being like in the 20s, using the mob, mafia, or crime. Cool, great, bring it on. We need more video game themes. And I think we've already seen this manual when we saw it originally on Chronologically Gaming. The Atari manuals are excellent. They usually, even for the operators, include some screenshots. It's obviously going to be very technical. They explain making sure you have all the parts for your system, physical description of the game. Yeah, there you go. They call it a car-chased video action game for 1, 2, or 3, 4, or 4 players. The game packages a distinctive styled upright cabinet. Yes, it is. And it explains the gameplay. It's cars are going to drive along parallel double-lane roadways that appear on each side of the TV picture. The players see the cops in either one of 1 or 2 cars on the left, and the robbers also in 1 or 2 cars on the right. Each player controls 1 car and has a machine gun barrel that protrudes from the side facing the opponents. It really doesn't look like a Tommy gun, though. The objective of the game is to build up and score points shooting bullets into the opposing cars. I won't continue on, but you kind of understand how they would describe this game, at least if you had it as an operator right now. All right, let's go to the arcades and see some Cops and Robbers. Released in the beginning of July 1976 by Atari. So we've already seen all the artwork, and this has been showcased on the show. And so just a few more things that I've realized since the last time we played it. First, the team play has something unique. I'm going to put in a coin, 25 cents, and then put another 25 cents. You can see it says multi-start. Check this out. You have to make sure you remember to use your gas pedal, because I think the last time we played, we didn't have one. So first of all, if you play this mode, this is 1v1, and it's like we're playing a dual shooter. So you have this mode, 1 player against another player. I think I switched it up on that side. The other way you can play is the 2 players against 2 human players, or you can play 2 players against a computer player. So you have different game options. When you play 2 different people, though, against computers, though, check out what happens. Let's put some more coins in, multi-start, and hit it. Step on the gas pedal when they appear. Okay, now you can see this is 1 player on, or 1 player on the left side, 2 players on the right side, and this is dependent on how many coins you put in. All right, so I can see I can drive. I'm controlling 2 human players. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the very first game that if you're in the back, like let's say the car in the back fires and the other person gets in the way, they are shot down. It is the very first video game that has friendly fire. You can mess up your teammate. You're supposed to be on the same team. You're supposed to be, you know, either both as cops or both as robbers. Obviously, we're both robbers, but you are able to shoot the other person. First time we've ever seen that before. It's also possible to play 1 player against 2 computers. Or I guess the same thing, 1 human player against 2 human players, because this is the very first video game that's offering asymmetrical multiplayer, which means unfair multiplayer. You're not evenly matched. Every other Pong game we've seen so far, or everything that's been multiplayer, has been evenly matched. This is the very first game that you could play without an even matchup if you wanted to. Really, really cool. So we call these shooting gallery style games. This is the 8th shooting gallery game we've seen so far, after games like Attack UFO, Anti-Aircraft, Seawolf, and Target on the Sol 20. It's also car combat, or vehicular combat. It's the 4th time we've seen a video game that's doing this, after games like Crash and Score, Destruction Derby, and Death Race. And it does have the dual shooter, which is the 18th time we've seen a video game that allows you and a friend to shoot each other like that. It also has turbo fire. It's really slow, but if I hold down the fire button, it just keeps firing. So the little trigger or fire that you were using in the arcade, it has turbo. Not the first, the 3rd time we've seen a turbo option in a video game. All the games so far that have turbo have been from Atari. Maybe that's their secret. Anti-Aircraft had turbo. You hold the button down, it just keeps firing. And Jet Fighter. So this one is special because the theme is set in the 1920s. It's an urban theme, like in a city. Very first time we've seen any video game like that. Also the very first video game that has a crime theme or law enforcement, because we're playing as cops and robbers. It's the 17th video game that has an automobile that you can control or drive. And notice that we have a time constraint. Down at the bottom, nothing's happening because we haven't pushed the pedal of the other players on the other side. They were playing the cops. And you're just trying to rack up as much points as you can within the time limit, because after the time limit's done, you're done. There is no high score, there is no arcade gameplay loop or anything like that. And this one barely constitutes as a vertically scrolling game. I mean, all we see is the lines in the road that are scrolling. And I'll even zoom in a little bit. Let me change my video option here. And we'll zoom in there. Yeah, now you have a better look of the cars and pixel art. You can also see the beer truck in the middle actually says the words beer. Really, really nice. Can we drink the beer? No. It's just in the way. It's just an obstacle, just like the obstacles we saw in Western Gun or Gunfight. And what you see here on the colors is the overlay. So this is not what the game's programmed for. It's simulating what the colors would be like with the plexiglass overlay. I would say this game is not as good as the scrolling in Firepower or Avenger or Ski. It's also not nearly as good as the scrolling in Speed Race or Wheels or Street Burners and games like that. It's the 33rd game we've played that has a time constraint. That's the thing in the early 70s. And it is the 64th game with an overlay and the 37th game with an overlay we've seen so far in the arcades. So Cops and Robbers is still interesting because of the gameplay modes. I'm going to let it stand at 3.5 stars for all the games you could play right now in the arcades, and because we're able to play it ourselves. All right, after that, what's our next game? Still in the arcades, and we're going to check out Crashing Race. Let's see what Crashing Race is all about, starting with the advertisement flyer. This is the 188th game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming, also released in the beginning of July 1976. It's the 148th game we've seen in the arcades up to this point, and it's basically Destruction Derby or Demolition Derby that we already saw in November 1975. This is the one that Taito did. The 20th time we've seen them involved with any this company involved with any game after Speed Race, games like Western Gun, Avenger, Seawolf, TT Ballpark 2, and Breakout. The competition car racing game where each player must try to crash as many computer-controlled cars as possible to score points. The player with the most points wins. It has competitive play, it has single-player play, and it's the 4th game that we've seen so far that is a Destruction Derby video game. It also has vehicular combat, car combat. It's the 5th time we've seen a game that does that after games like Crash and Score, Destruction Derby, Death Race, and the one we just saw, Cops and Robbers. It has a steering wheel and pedals, and it's the 14th video game that has that kind of control. It also is the 25th video game with relative control. You have to go in the direction your car is facing. It's the 18th video game that's controlled with an automobile, and it's the 34th game we've seen with a time constraint. It's the 65th video game that has an overlay that's enhancing the graphics, the 38th game with an overlay that we've seen in the arcade so far. The reason why I'm including this one because it's essentially the same game, or supposed to be the same port as Destruction Derby. Now, we saw that by Exidy, and the reason why I'm including it is because I can't find video footage of this game, but I do know it is not using a microprocessor, and I wonder if this is like Western Gun and Gunfight. Western Gun was made first by Taito with discrete logic in Japan. When it was brought over in the United States as Gunfight, it included a CPU, and then it was a completely different experience. I do not know if Crashing Race is slightly different because I've seen that the development was done by Taito. So I'm wondering if they took the inspiration and made a slightly different game like we saw with Western Gun and Gunfight, but I actually don't know for sure. So that's why I'm including it as a second game. So this is the back. Flip over the advertisement flyer. It has examples about the game, but it does show in the center what the screenshot looks like. Really tiny characters, and it looks close to Destruction Derby. So this might be a direct clone of the one we already saw by Exidy. That's been enhanced at this point, and it's called Death Race. I don't think they got Death Race in Japan. It'd be cool if they did, though. But that's all I have. All this is the advertisement flyer for Crashing Race. Since we can't play it, I'm going to give it 0 stars. The video that we see on the left side is the footage we saw for Destruction Derby by Exidy when it was originally released. All right, after that game, let's see what our next game is as we see and play every single video game. Our next video game is Flyball that we have seen on Chronologically Gaming. This is the 189th game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming up to this point. Here's the advertisement flyer for Flyball. Baseball, bring it on. This game is only found in the arcades. It's the 149th game we've seen in the arcades so far. And it's again by Atari, their 31st game that we've seen them do. The 30th one we've seen them do in the arcade. And also don't forget Key Games and don't forget Syzygy Engineering. There's just one game we've seen so far with that name. This one's done by Dave Shepard. The very first time we've seen him program anything. So way to go, Dave. You can see this advertisement flyer is so Atari. It's awesome. I mean, even the words are excellent around the outside. Realistic sound effects. 23-inch monitor. Is that impressive? Batter up. Take 2 and hit to the right. All-star lineup. You got to tilt your head to the side to to read the advertisement flyer. And an example of the screenshot. There it is. The arcade cabinet. Look at that control panel in the bottom, though. I didn't mention this too much because I got some better scans of the arcade cabinet. It looks pretty simplistic, but it actually is very interesting. Flyball is Atari's answer to a baseball video game. This is Atari's first. Each player controls either the pitching team or the hitting team. Both pitching and batting are controlled via joystick. Analog joystick. The pitching team has only one player on the field at a time, the pitcher, while the hitting team can have up to 4, depending on what bases they're on. As in real baseball, the goal is to hit the ball and run the bases, and the team with the highest score after the innings runs out. The game lasts 1 or 2 innings, or depending on how the owner has set up the machine. You can already tell that they're adding a little bit of border around the bezel, and it's not trying to simulate the cool 3D effect that we saw with Tornado Baseball, but it is having an overlay that you can look down upon the game action. Yeah, arcade cabinet, though, has artwork all around the outside. Way to go, Atari. There's the arcade PCB on the inside, And there it is, the control panel. Look at that left side. That's an analog joystick. One of the very first that we've seen up to this point. It's the 5th so far in all video games that's an analog one. After Football, Maneater, Avenger, and Seawolf. Well, I guess if you count the Periscope. The Periscope was analog, but this is true, like freedom of analog joystick all the way around. And then all we have is the button. Really simple controls, and I'll get into how it works whenever we start playing. There's the arcade marquee for Flyball. The batter will automatically run to the bases after hit. You just have to get the pitcher to catch the ball and then tag the runner out. So there isn't any throwing the ball. You don't throw to different bases. You just got to be able to run really fast with an example of the screenshot. Now, we even have the manual, and I think we saw the manual last time when we saw it on the live show. But as usual, Atari manuals are awesome. Not only are they giving you information about what the game is or how the game is, they also bring up anything new technologically, because Atari was always trying to do something fancy and impressive to make it stand out, considering there's a lot of competition right now. Flyball is a baseball video action game. It's the same that in real baseball, to score more runs than the opponent does. Just as in a real game, every ball pitched will turn out to be a strike, a ball, or a hit. And the inning lasts until 3 outs have been made on each side. In Flyball, an out is made after 3 strike pitches are thrown, or else the pitcher intercepts a ball in play and then tags a runner heading for a base. So there really isn't catching a ball either. It's cool how they do this. So yeah, we played very little. This was so short when we played it last time. Let's go to the arcades and check out Flyball. Dave Shepard and Atari in the beginning of July 1976. Ah, there it is. Yes. This marks the 4th baseball game we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. Baseball was on the Magnavox Odyssey. Baseball by Ramtech was in the arcades, also called Ballpark, Batter Up, Deluxe Baseball, or TT Ballpark. And then Tornado Baseball was the one we just recently saw. So this one, you have to have another person to play. So I have 2 hands using each of the analog joysticks. Make sure you bring a friend if you want to play Flyball. All right, so the way it works, let's put a coin in, 1 coin accepted, and then push start. And then what I'll do is show what it's like to control each side. All right, here we go. Ready? So I'm going to move the batter. There you go. So one player is just using the analog joystick. And look at that. You got a really cool animation for the bat. But that's pretty much all they can do. There isn't anything that the button even does. With the pitcher, though, you can use the joystick. And look, you can make fine-tuned movements, throw the ball, and then do curves. Look at that. Really unrealistic ball physics, but fun. It's great being able to control that. So you can see I already got one hit, and then you got to be really fast. As soon as the ball's hit, the pitcher then needs to move, grab that ball, and then run to the... Oh, I missed him. And run to catch it, or run to tag him. So there isn't any catching the ball in midair. There isn't any... Let's see if we can get... Nope, missed him there too. There isn't any... we got 3 outs and move to the next one. And there isn't any controlling any of the players on any bases. Notice there's no outfield either. So it's a different idea or take on baseball. And so it's very unique, and I actually kind of enjoy it, but in the way the other games we've seen so far are much better baseball. It does offer absolute control. In other words, when I was moving around as the pitcher, when I moved up on that analog joystick, he moved up on the top of the screen. Look. All the way. Oh, I got to use this one. That's right. I got to use the right joystick. There we go. Sorry, that's why I can make full circles with my pitcher. Let's see if we can get some home... So I don't even know if there's a home run like there was in Tornado Baseball. Can you hit it? Let's see if he can hit a home run if I ignore the ball. Does it go all the way? It does. Okay, so they count the home run just as the ball going off the screen. It's more like two-dimensional home run. So this one did have an overlay. We aren't really seeing it here, but it's the 66th video game with an overlay so far, and the 39th video game with an overlay that we've seen in the arcades. And when we originally played this and saw it on Chronologically Gaming on the live show, I gave it 2 stars, which is a bad game. I don't know if I want to say it's really a bad game, but it isn't as enjoyable because of the simplicity. It is fun being able to move the player around, but I won't say bad. I'll say 2.5 stars for Flyball. still slightly about average, but you can understand the complexity of a game like baseball is difficult to translate into a video game up to this point. All right, after that, what's our next video game? We're next going to play on the second home computer you could ever play on. This is the Apple-1. Let's check it out together. The Apple-1. Introduced in July 1976, was Apple Computer's first product and one of the earliest machines to make personal computing feel truly accessible. Designed almost entirely by Steve Wozniak and marketed by Steve Jobs, it was sold not as a kit of parts like most contemporaries, but as a fully assembled circuit board, a bold departure from the norm that lowered the barrier to entry for hobbyists and enthusiasts. At its core, the Apple-1 was powered by the MOS Technology 6502 microprocessor running at 1.023 megahertz. It shipped standard with 4 kilobytes of RAM, expandable to 8 kilobytes or even 48 kilobytes using expansion cards. For storage, it relied on cassette tapes. There's one. And Apple provided a cassette interface that could transfer data at 1,200 bits per second. Unlike many computers of the era, the Apple-1 was designed with a built-in video terminal. Users could connect the board directly to a composite monitor or television and type commands through a standard ASCII keyboard. The video system supported 40 characters per line, displaying text at a speed of about 60 characters per second, a convenience that eliminated the need for most costly teletype machines. Sold 20. The machine was sold at the Byte Shop in Mountain View, California for $666.66, a price Wozniak chose because he liked repeating digits. About 200 units were produced, making the Apple-1 not just a rare collector's piece today, but also the foundation of Apple's rise in the computer industry. Now, this is an example of the game we're about to play. This is the system itself. If you had the Apple-1, this is closer to a hobbyist or kit computer, even though it was a fully assembled piece. But what you're seeing here, see how it's different parts, like an amalgamation together? And then even if you look down at the bottom left, the wooden Apple-1 is another example of how it was very, very niche still. This is not personal computing as something that's popular. The uber nerds were checking out and playing with the Apple-1. So now you got to ask yourself, what in the world was the very first game that you would play on the Apple-1? I honestly don't know. It's kind of like with the Soul 20. We're just going to play the games that I know were released around this time, and if they were programmed by Steve Wozniak to show off this computer. What I have here is the manual, the operation manual for the Apple-1. Take a look at that logo. It has Isaac Newton with the Apple. Ever wonder where the Apple came from or the Apple idea? That's it. It's the Apple from Isaac Newton. That logo looks like it's from the 18 or 1700s. It is so old. Just bear in mind, it's 1976, but the logo is ancient. So the operation manual is going to go through the specifications of the Apple-1, everything that I've mentioned before, what the video output is, the RAM or memory, and then the power supplies. This is so basic. This is the beginning of the beginning. The only thing that would be even older than this would be something like the Altair or the mainframe computers or terminal computers that we do not check out on the show. Gives us an introduction of the microcomputer system and what it takes to play and get the system running. Now, the way that we're going to be playing games on the Apple-1 moving forward on Chronologically Gaming is not the true experience. We will not show you how long it takes to load a cassette tape, how long it takes to load BASIC, because we would be here even longer than possible. So I'm not going to go through the manual in its entirety either. But we're going to go through a few of the games that you could have played when you first got the Apple-1 or saw the Apple-1 in 1976. Let's check out some Blackjack. Released at some time in July 1976. This marks the 190th game that we've seen on Chronologically Gaming. Well, the game's not even up yet, but hey, it's blinking. The cursor's blinking. So it's not like we had played on the Soul 20. So we have a blinking cursor. When you first played Blackjack, there's some games that you can load direct from the cassette. So you pop in the cassette, you load the cassette, you load it from memory. I'm not going to go through all the loading instructions. Instead, I'm just going to load the state because you would probably have 5-10 minutes of total load time to get these games to go. All right, ready? There it is. We run the program. You can see a few of the commands we had to run, and welcome to 21. And then it asks for our name. At this point, We've played 149 games in the arcade, 38 games on home consoles. This marks the second game that we've seen for any home computer so far. And this is the very first game that we've seen by the Apple Computer Company. This one, I have some documentation that says Steve Wozniak programmed this, but at this point, because they just founded Apple, were all the games programmed by the Woz? I cannot confirm. So I'm going to give a lot of credit for these games as Steve Wozniak, but you're welcome to correct me just because the documentation for these first games is pretty hard to come by. At this point, Steve Wozniak did Breakout, along with some help from Steve Jobs, apparently. But Blackjack is a computer version of the classic casino game. The player plays against the bank and must draw cards to get as close to a value of 21 without going over. This game, because it's our very first Blackjack game that we've ever seen at this point, means it's the very first game that is alternating play against a computer. Like we're playing by ourselves, but the computer is we're going to be taking turns with the computer. So the computer will think about something, and then we think about something. All right, so let's start with our name. Chrono. Okay, here we go, Chrono. What's our bet? Oh, what can we bet? Let's try betting 50. This is the very first time we played any blackjack so far. All right, so they're showing 5 of spades. You have 3 of hearts. Notice everything is in text. You have 3 of hearts as hit, and we'll say yes. Give me a hit. 8 of hearts. 11, I'll hit again. Yes. 17, we'll say no. Got 5 of spades, 4 of diamonds, 8 of diamonds. Yes, we win. I can't believe your run of luck, Chrono. I like how it's referring to us by our name. And it shows our winnings. We got 50. Okay, so now can we bet even higher? Can we do 500? I don't even know how much money we have. I show 2 of diamonds. I have a king and 4 of spades. So 14. That's rough. I'll hit. 15. Still. Okay, yes. Say no. Okay, 2, 9, 2 of hearts. Jack. And he busted and I win. Now I'm getting mad. Oh, I love it. So they're giving the computer personality. So just bear in mind, the first time we've ever seen a computer play with us, taking turns. Usually when we play against the computer is actively working at the same. But this is, we do a turn, they do a turn. So we're starting to talk to the computer and play with the computer. The very first time we've ever done that. At this point, Blackjack has been on mainframe since 1962. Terminal weighing 2200, Altair 8800. This one is not unique if you were to play every single game on mainframe. We don't play the mainframe or terminal games, but this is the very first time we've seen it. And because it's a gambling video game, we're not going to see a bunch of blackjack because this formula, all text, is going to be copied over and over and over again. We're going to see this on lots of home computers, so we may not be seeing every single version of it. This is only the second game that we've seen that is keyboard controlled only. Moving forward, all home computers that we see most likely all have a keyboard mode to play. We're only going to keep track of all the computer games that have joystick controls, paddle or digital joystick, analog joystick, because majority of the games are all going to have a way to play with the keyboard. I mean, that's the point of having a personal computer or a computer at home. The only other game we've seen with keyboard controls only was the Soul20 game Game Pack 1. Everything up to this point was been on consoles or the arcade, and they all had joysticks or paddles. So this is also the very first game that has us doing text to type in. So we played a few games where they were having some inputs on the Soul20, or we played an actual video game like Target on the Soul20, but this is the first video game that has us typing in commands. And I don't want to call these text parsers just yet. We'll get to that whenever it's a 2-word text parser for adventure games. This I'm just going to consider calling its text input. So the way that we're controlling the video game is just typing some things in. It's not a true text parser. You can still call it a text parser, but we'll just call it as text typing in. This is the 9th video game where we're having to take turns to play the game. It's a turn-based video game. We played a lot of them on the Magnavox Odyssey, and we also played coin bowling in the arcade. And so there's a few out there, but this one is, when we get to home computers, there's going to be so many turn-based video games. It's only the second video game that we've seen where it's all text. It's either a spreadsheet or it's text only. And a quiz show in the arcade was the only other game we've seen that it's just text. Not to be confused with ASCII graphics like we saw with Target. That's where they're using the text to actually make a graphic move or animate as if you're playing an arcade game. That's a different. This is all the game is. All you're looking at is text. They're not using the text to try to look like a card when you're playing blackjack. All right, can we bet 1,000? I show 3 of spades. You have a queen, nice, and a T of spades. What's it? Oh, 10. Oh yeah, definitely not hit. No. Doesn't that mean, yeah, we have 20? I can't believe your run of luck. And there's our winnings. This is awesome. What's our max? Can we do like 10,000? Oh, there you go. 3,000 is the limit. Okay, let's do 3,000. We're feeling really lucky. All right, so we got a 10 of hearts. We got a 6 of clubs. Yes, I'll hit. Oh, and I bust. Oh, okay, a 10 of diamond. We had 16. Okay, I still would have hit anyway. So busted. I win. If you don't improve, Chrono, I'll quit. And so our winnings are negative 1450. So there you go. That's the very first game of blackjack we've ever played on Chronologically Gaming on the very first Apple-1. So what else could you play on your Apple-1 in 1976? Let's see what our next game is. Coming up next is Hamurabi, also available to play on your Apple-1 right now. This is the 191st game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming. At this point, we've played 149 games in the arcade. We played 38 games on home consoles. This is only the third game we've played for all home computers. The second game that we've seen from Apple Computer, and the third game by Steve Wozniak. Now again, this one may not have been Steve, but I mean, who else was working at Apple to make these games that we're playing right now? Hamurabi actually goes way back. We're talking 1969 on a DEC PDP-8. Written in Focal, which is kind of like Algol spinoff by Rick Merrill himself. Way to go, Rick. And get this, that game, known first as the Sumer game, or King of Sumeria, only took up 700 bytes. 700 bytes. That's like less than a single emoji today. Later, it got ported over to BASIC, trimmed down even further to about 400 bytes. And that's when it really started to spread to the mainframe crowd. By now, Hamurabi is already on the Wang 2200, Altair 8800, and home computer kits running the Intel 8080 and Zilog Z80 chips. This picture shows you what Hamurabi would have been like to play first on a teletype, which means that there isn't graphics. The paper comes up and tells you what you're seeing. That's the output, not a screen. So I wouldn't call them true video games because there's no video screen. This is the very first time we've played the Sumer game, or a Sumer-like game. It is the second time we're going to play a video game. We're going to alternate turns with the computer. It's a single-player game, but we're playing against the computer. We're starting to talk to computers now. It's going to be scary. This was also available in basic computer games. And some of the games that we're going to be seeing on the first home computers came from this book. This was where you were able to program or type in the games. One of the first times you were able to type in games, it was from this. This is where it came from. I love the front. It looks like something that kids would be checking out, or something from the Saturday morning cartoons. They even have a little character down at the bottom. He's a tiny little computer. Very cute. So here's a picture from a magazine, from a newspaper article showing someone playing Sumer game on the original teletype. Look how much fun she's having. We'll see how much fun we have. And here is what it would look like from the output. So the original Sumer game, the very first time you could ever have played it around the 60s, this is an example of one of the paper outputs, what the game's like. And you're going to see this is really close. The text that we're going to see in the Apple-1 is very similar. The King of Sumeria is a game that challenges your ability to foresee the consumer market. Hamurabi, your servant, will state the following facts about last year, and you must decide the number of acres you will need and how many bushels of grain you expect to distribute as food. You will base your decisions on these facts, and they're going to go through all these facts when we play the game. Based on your decisions, Hamurabi will state a new report of the above information. And there's the example of the screenshot. Oh man, I'm so excited. There also was a version on the Apple-1 that was by Computerland. We won't be checking that one out. It's still sometime in the 70s when that was released. We're going to play the very first, which is the one on the Apple-1. Here's Hamurabi by Apple Computer on the Apple-1 in the summer of 1976. And there it is. Same thing. We're going to not show you the load from cassette tape and have to, by the way, when we played on the Soul 20, the Soul 20 had a teletype version of that computer. The Apple-1 had nothing like that. There was no paper, but I'm still not going to show you how it loads by cassette. We're going to go in, and there it is. Hamurabi. Try your hand at governing ancient Sumeria successfully for a 10-year term of office. Hamurabi says, I beg to report to you, in year 1, 0 people starved. 5 people came to the city. The population is now 100. The city now owns 1,000 acres. You harvested 3 bushels per acre. Rats ate 200 bushels. You now have 2,800 bushels in store. Land is trading at 22 bushels per acre. How many acres do you wish to buy? This marks the very first simulation video game that is a managerial or business simulator. We saw Life on the Soul 20 as a biological simulator, you know, sort of. And as far as simulators go, the only one that can come close is maybe Seawolf that we saw in the arcades as a naval simulator just because you're looking through the periscope. But this is like the grandfather of simulation or God video games. It is keyboard controlled only. The third video game we've seen that is only a keyboard to control it. It's the second video game involving mice and rats after Cat and Mouse on the Magnavox Odyssey. When will they ever learn? Mice and rats just don't go very well in video games. It's also the fourth video game we've seen that is randomly generated. All these stats and what happens during the game in the beginning, it's random every single time you play. It's also, and I'll get into this part next, so it's going to ask us some questions. How many acres do we want to buy? Let's buy 400. Oh, we only have 2,800 bushels. Okay, so now how many? Let's do 30. How many do you want to feed your people? Let's feed them. Can we do 2,200? Oh, we only have that many left. Let's feed them 2,100. People got to eat. How many acres do you want to plant with seed? I don't know, 3? All right, here we go. We made it to year 2. Most of the time when you play this the first time, you don't even get to year 2. Everyone dies and the game's over. I beg to report to you, in year 2, 0 people starved, 4 came to the city. The population is now 104. City owns 1,030 acres. You harvested 1. Rats ate 39. You now have, oh gosh, we only have 3 bushels in store. I don't think we made the best decisions. Land is trading at 18 bushels. How many acres do you wish to buy? Can I even buy 1? Yeah, you only have 3. How many do you want to buy? We'll say 0. How many acres do you wish to sell? Can we sell 1? How many do you want to feed your people? Do I even have 10? Okay, we do have 10. Okay, we'll do 3. And then you starved 104 people in 1 year. Due to this extreme mismanagement, you have not only been impeached and thrown out of the office, but you've also been declared National Fink. So long for now. And this brings up the other thing that makes this game unique. This is the very first video game we've seen so far that has multiple endings. Depending on your decisions, I think it's only 1 or 2 different endings, but every video game up to this point all has, if they have an ending, by the way, most video games don't even have endings, but if they do, this is the first one we've ever seen that has multiple endings. It's also the very first video game where we're getting to play as royalty. We're playing as the king of Sumeria, or Sumer. Maybe the other game that we've seen up to this point was on the Magnavox Odyssey called Invasion. Maybe you could consider that as you taking part in or being someone of royalty, but I can't really tell for sure because we didn't get a chance to play Invasion. It's the very first video game that's taking place in the Middle East. The very first video game that's taking place in ancient Sumeria. It's the second video game where we're typing stuff in after Blackjack. It's the 10th video game that is turn-based. After all those games on the Magnavox Odyssey and Blackjack, coin bowling in the arcade, there's not a whole lot of turn-based games. We're going to see a lot more on home computers. It's the third video game where it's just text all over the screen. Or spreadsheet. We'll get to those later if there's spreadsheet games. After Quiz Show and Blackjack. I'm going to give an article on Sumer, if you look down below in the links, from a Critical Hit. It's a blog article or a website. Be sure to check that out if you want even more information about this ancient game, this grandfather of all video games. We're not going to play anymore. Your first experience with Hamurabi, you're not going to get past year 1. We saw up to year 2. You're welcome. So we won't be checking out the Computerland version, but just know it exists. Of all the games you could play up to this point, of all the things we've seen so far for all home computers, there's not a lot out there. But Hamurabi, being able to play this at home is excellent. I'm going to give this a 4-star game. Did we rate Blackjack? I can't remember if we gave it a rating. Yeah, we didn't rate Blackjack. So of all the games you could play up to this point on home computers, Blackjack is okay, but I wouldn't give it something as influential or amazing as Hamurabi. I'm going to go 2.5 stars for all the games you could play across all home computers right now. And bear in mind, this is only the second game we've seen on all home computers thus far. Still pretty cool. All right, after Hamurabi, what else could you be playing on the Apple-1? Coming up next is Life. Everyone knows about Life. Now this one all I have is some screenshots, so let's just load that cassette tape in our Apple-1 and check out Life, released at some time in July 1976 by Apple Computer. This is our 195th video game we've seen on, 192nd game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming. It's the 4th video game we've seen for a home computer. All right, so I'm going to do it again. We're not going to be loading the cassette. This is not the true experience of what it's like to play Life on your Apple-1. So this right here is Life, or Game of Life, and it's basically Conway's Game of Life brought over to the Apple-1. Now, if you don't know, the Game of Life isn't really a game in the usual sense. It was first shown off in Scientific American back in October of 1970. In an article by Martin Gardner. The actual idea came from John Horton Conway out of Cambridge University, and it ended up spreading everywhere. Right now you can find it on mainframe, on terminal, the Wayne 2200, even the Altair 8800. We already saw it pop up on the Sol 20 as part of Game Pack 1. And fun fact, there was even a Life 2 that came out on mainframes in '73. Pretty wild how far this thing spread for what's essentially a little simulation of life and death on a grid. All right, so what's our full name? Chrono. I fat-fingered my name, but it works anyway. It's just going right into it. So it's using asterisks, and they're filling up the screen just after typing the name. So it's different than we saw on the Sol 20. The Sol 20, I was able to plant the cells for life. Oh, is this it? Go yes. And it does the next string. How interesting. Yeah, the interface is different than we saw on the Sol 20. It's doing it line by line. I would say even more simplistic. So the Sol 20 has the better life up to this point. This is only the second time we played the Game of Life. This game is single player only. The second time we played a biological simulator. I mean, bare bones. The second game that has a text mode to it. It's using ASCII graphics like we saw with Target or the other Game of Life. It's also the 4th time we're indirectly controlling the game. Notice that I make a decision and I'm not really doing too much to it. It's more of a demo, sort of a demo. It's not true video game in the sense that you're controlling it. It's the 5th video game we've seen that's randomly generated. The way that this works is any cell with fewer than 2 live neighbors dies. This is the rules of life, as if caused by underpopulation. Any live cell with 2 or 3 live neighbors lives on to the next generation. Any cell with more than 3 live neighbors dies, as if by overcrowding. And any dead cell with exactly 3 live neighbors becomes a live cell, as if by reproduction. Those are the rules programmed into our little asterisks. So those are what they mean by cells, or how they're representing them. And this is not really me doing much. So the game really doesn't have too much to it. So of all the games you can play right now on home computers, we last saw it in a game pack on the Sol 20. This one all by itself, not really doing too many favors. It is excellent though. If you were a fan of playing and seeing this stuff on mainframe computers and terminals, it would be a novelty, but I gotta go low and say it's a 2-star game. Of all the games you could play, because it's barely a game, I'm saying 2 stars for Life on the Apple-1. So what else could you play on your Apple-1? Let's check it out. Next video game is called Lunar Lander. Everyone should know about Lunar Lander. Let's check it out together. This is the 193rd game we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. At this point, we've seen 149 games in the arcade, 38 games on home consoles. This is only the 5th video game on all home computers. The 4th game we've seen by Apple Computer. All right, let's dive into some history while we check out Lunar Lander on the Apple-1. So this isn't the first time anyone thought of putting a spaceship down on the moon. This game comes from a whole family of lunar landing sims that were floating around even before the Apple-1 was born. The earliest versions go back to the late 60s on mainframes. Text-only games where you'd input fuel burn and the computer would calculate how fast you were falling. You'd get a readout of your altitude, velocity, and fuel, and the goal was to hit 0 altitude without hitting the moon like a brick. One of the earliest known programs was just called Lunar, or Rocket, which ran on machines like the PDP-8. These games were written in language like Focal and BASIC, spreading fast across universities and labs. By the early 70s, variants of Lunar Lander were everywhere, on the PDP-10, the Wang 2200, the Altair 8800, even on calculators. Even one tweaked the formulas, or each one of them tweaked the formulas a little, giving some smoother physics, some harder crashes. Basically, if you had access to a terminal right now, odds are you have seen some version of Lunar Landing in the rotation. So now that we get to the Apple-1, this version is carrying forward that legacy. And so these are just some screenshots of the game. There's not a whole lot that I went off of, except, you can see the example of the original Lunar Landing. Let's pop in that cassette and play some Lunar Lander on the Apple-1, released at some time in July 1976. And as usual, we're not loading on the cassette. Let's just go right into the game. Lunar Lander. This version is carrying forward that legacy. The core idea is you're the pilot of the lander trying to touch down gently by managing your fuel. Burn too much, you run dry before landing. Burn too little, and you slam to the surface at lethal speed. And like the old mainframe versions, once the fuel's gone, the game just plays out your doom second by second, matching your watch to your crash in slow motion. It's a simple concept, but the physics puzzle of early computing. And honestly, it's one of the first simulation-style games people ever got to play. So, how do you play it? Well, first of all, it's giving us information about the minus velocity and downward velocity, the maximum burn. The burn of 5 units is required to cancel gravity. And it says, good luck. You control the lunar module. Begin landing procedure now. And so what I'm going to show you is if I look over here, if you look down at the bottom right, that's where the cursor is, because it's giving us our time, our height, velocity, fuel units, and then burn. So we put in what we want to burn, because right now we're 500 feet high. We're going down at -50. So let's start with 20 burn. And you can see now we've gone lower. Our velocity is slowing down. Let's just do 10. Still looking good. And you can see our fuel is over on the left side. Let's do 0. How bad can it be? Oh, we did go up. Whoop, our velocity, at least we started to speed up. Let's do it again. Give me 5. Let's keep it at 35, sure. Don't have a lot of fuel, though. Let's do 10 again. And 10 again. Oh, wrong button. There he is. Fuel burn there. So you can see they're giving you all the information you need, but it's not like Lunar Lander that's graphical. This is Lunar Lander where everything is text. And it's another video game where we're taking turns with a computer, single player. It's the 3rd video game that's doing that. It's the very first video game where we're controlling a lander. It's also the very first video game on the Earth's moon, and it's the first variant of Lunar Lander that we've ever seen on Chronologically Gaming. We are typing everything in. It's a text typing style game with the input. 3rd game we've seen that does that. The 11th turn-based game we've seen so far, and the 4th video game that we've seen with just text on the screen. All right, let's see if we can land this thing. Here we go. 10 more burn. We got 50 fuel left. Let's slow us down. Let's do 5. Still looking good. Can I do 4? Velocity went up. We sped up a little bit. 4 again. Let's try 7. Okay, velocity's 20. See, I don't think we're going to make it. Let's do 5. 5. Let's do 10. Oof, this is tight. Burn 1. Uh-oh, we're speeding up. Yep, look at that. Look at the velocity increase. Oh, what's not good? We're on the moon, and we... You just creamed a 29 megabuck lander. Wait, is it sci-fi themed? Is megabucks a real thing? I don't know if that's a NASA term or not. And then you can try again if you want. Control the lunar module, begin the loading procedure, and then it goes through after that. So you just keep trying to see if you can conserve your fuel and make sure your fuel doesn't run. Now, let's try it a different way. If we play it where we actually burn until it's all run out, like if I just keep doing 50. Oh, I did the wrong button again. 50. Can I? Oh, and I can't do 50 as a... Interesting, I didn't know that. There we go. Okay, looking good right now. You can see there's our height. And we have... I'm just going to keep running out the fuel. Velocity looks better this time, but if I do 10 each time... Oh, yeah, we still went in way too fast. See, our velocity was negative 22. All right, let's try it again. Yes. Try again. Let's do 20 this time. I want to burn everything. Velocity looks pretty good. Okay, 10 that. Plus 5. Okay, we should do 5. 5. Keep going. Maybe 1. 2. Uh-oh, not good. 10 more. Oh, out of fuel, and then we just drop. And look, our velocity. There it is. That's what I wanted to see. And our velocity just goes crazy. And then we creamed ourselves again on the moon. That would be your first experience playing Lunar Lander for the Apple-1. That's fun. It's iconic. It's going to be copied and cloned so much, at least text-wise, before we get any graphics. This game, I would say, of all the games you could play across all home computers, is average. This is a very average video game if you think of everything you could play right now. Especially, how amazing is it to play this stuff at home? And finally, we have one more game that you could be playing on your Apple-1 right now, and it's Mastermind. Let's check it out together. This is one I just have some screenshots for. I wasn't able to find any box manuals or information for these very first games for the Apple-1. Let's pop in that cassette and play Mastermind by Steve Wozniak, published by Apple Computer at sometime in July 1976. And just load right into it. That's Mastermind. It was that quick. This is our 194th game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming, the 6th video game that we've seen on all home computers, and the 5th time it's a game for Apple Computer. This is Mastermind on the Apple-1. And yeah, it's exactly what you think it is. The classic code-breaking board game, but running on one of the very first personal computers. So here's how it works. You got to crack a secret 4-digit code. After each guess, the computer tells you two things: how many digits you got correct and how many digits you got correct but in the wrong spot. From there, it's all about logic, deduction, and trying to crack that code in as few guesses as possible. Now, quick bit of history, Mastermind itself was invented by Mordecai Mierovich and first shown off at the Nuremberg Toy Fair in 1971. Invicta picked up the rights, and by Christmas of '75, it was the must-have game. After that, it exploded everywhere, and naturally computers of the time couldn't resist making their own versions. And of course, this wasn't the first time people messed with this idea. Before Mastermind, you had code-breaking games like Bulls and Cows and Bagels, which laid the groundwork for what became one of the most iconic puzzle games of the 70s and beyond. So yeah, this is OG logic puzzle gaming history right here, Apple-1 style. This one is the first time we've ever played any version of Mastermind or a variant of Mastermind. The game Mastermind is essentially a puzzle game. It's originally based on a board game, but this is only the third puzzle game that we've seen on Chronologically Gaming so far. Brainwave on the Magnavox Odyssey kind of constitutes as that, and Touch Me by Atari in the arcade kind of constitutes as a puzzle game. It's a memory-based game. So the very first time we've seen anything like this, let's try to play some Mastermind. Everyone ready? All right, so what I want to do first is just the classic 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Oh, okay, it says that we have 3 of these in the right spot. So there's actually 3 zeros in this. All right, so if we do 1 1 0 0 0. Okay, so it looks like we have 2 zeros, at least in those spots in the end. So if I do 2, we have a 1 here too. Let's do 2 2 1 0 0. Okay, so it's not that one. So let's do 3 3 3 0 3 0. So I only got 2. It means we really have 3 zeros. Does that mean it's 4 0 0 0 2? It is. So there's 3 zeros in the middle, and this is how the game plays out, or the puzzle game plays out. The plus sign means that we have 3 numbers that are in the correct, telling us we have 3 numbers that are the correct numbers in the correct spot. The minus sign means that we have the correct number, but in the wrong spot. So this means if you look at the history, we figured out that we have 3 zeros in the middle. We got those. And now we just have to figure out the ends. It says that there's, one of them had 2 of the numbers that were the correct number, but in the wrong place. So that means I bet there's 2, is it really 3? Yeah, that means that we would have, it should be 3 0 0 0 3. And we won. There we go. And that's how the game works. And if you're ready again, you just keep going and keep playing the Brain Teaser or Brain Master. This is the 6th video game that is controlled only with a keyboard. It is the 4th video game where the input is text and typing. Sorry, no joysticks, no paddles, nothing like that. It's the 12th video game that is turn-based. We're taking turns with a computer. We're talking with a computer. It's the wave of the future. It's the 5th video game that's all text. This game, we're going to see a lot and cloned a lot. So while it's the first time we've ever seen it, everyone gets it, everyone understands it, everyone loves it. It's the rage right now. I would call this, again, a very average video game. Of all the games you could play across all home computers, this is all right. It's well done and fun. And there we go. We got to put our video game playing on pause. Thanks everyone joining me for Chronologically Gaming in 1976. Next time on the Chronologically Gaming backlog, we have more games in the arcade that are brand new in the summer, and some more games on the Soul 20. There is no stopping microcomputer gaming. That's it for today, and like I always say, with games like this you can play at home, why go back to mainframe and terminal? Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the channel and joining me on my quest to play every single video game in order of release. We'll be streaming live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central, so join us and be a Chronologically Gaming influencer, rating the games as we play them. This video wouldn't be possible without Launchbox, RetroArch, and Main. Tell all your friends there's some crazy guy named Chronologically Gaming trying to play every video game. We have links down below that give more information on the games we played this episode, as well as our Discord and Patreon. There's a link called All the Games We Have Played. If you go there, it's a list of everything, and you can click right to the game you want to see. Chronologically Gaming is the name to look for. We are perpetually retro, and we will catch you next time.